Welcome to the New Hampshire Journal podcast. I'm your host, Michael Graham, managing editor at NHJournal.com. This podcast made possible by our good friends at Perfect Smiles of Nashua, online at perfectsmiles.com. More about them coming up in the show. Plus, plenty of Graham Platner talk in our rank punditry section. We caught up with the Boston Globe's James Pindell. He was in Maine. In fact, he spoke to us just not far from Graham Platner's house. So I hope he's safe. We'll have to do a safety call on him later. Also, Greg Moore with Americans for Prosperity. But it's our newsmaker that I'm most interested in. Our newsmaker today is 1st Congressional District Republican candidate Anthony DiLorenzo. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, we don't mess around here. You've got some news to break. We want to break it. It's the time when federal candidates are reporting their fundraising, their cash on hand, et cetera. What's the big number for the DiLorenzo campaign?
We're going to be just over $1 million this quarter in a raise, which is
wow.
It's great. I mean, I've always said that we would have the resources, both financially and from a networking and team support, to win this race. And we will have the necessary resources, which is one of the reasons why we haven't been successful in winning a federal race for quite some time, is because the Democrats have outraised us significantly in the previous, over the last decade anyway.
So I want to follow up on that in just a second. But first, so what's your cash on hand going to be, ballpark?
Just right around 1.1, over 1.1, which is, we're going to spend. It's early to spend right now from what the experts tell me, but I've never run for political office, so I have name recognition is an issue for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen, you say you never run political office. Back in my consulting days, that would have made you my hero, because the people who do this all the time talk themselves out, trick themselves out, play mind games, et cetera. I know that the political junkies who are watching are going to want to know how much of that million-ish was raised and how much is an investment by you into your campaign.
Yeah, a significant amount of it was mine. In the vicinity of 800,000 was mine. And
so let me ask you that. Is that you sending a message to the rest of the field about how serious you are about winning this primary?
I mean, it's me saying I have the resources to win this race.
Right.
And that's what's important. I didn't get in this for any other reason except to win. And that's my intent. And I may not have gotten in this race if I felt there was another candidate on the Republican side that could raise the resources to win the race. But I mean, if you look at, I think Maura just announced she raised $700,000 last quarter. Nobody else on the Republican side is coming anywhere close to that type of money. And the sad fact of the matter is, without resources, you can't win. And we're very fortunate this year, because not only do we have resources, but we have people on the ground. We have Turning Point here who's endorsed me, but they're door knocking for Republicans, which is one of 3 states that they're active in.
Right.
We have we have a great ticket with 2 former senators running on and a very highly regarded governor. So this is a time to win these seats.
And, you mentioned TPUSA, and that's a great point. You've also got Americans for Prosperity. They're all active on the ground. There's a fundraising advantage for the national committees, which is pretty interesting, which was kind of odd. I mean, you've got a midterm coming up where the consensus is Republicans are likely to lose the House down in Congress, and yet money is pouring in, which tells me that people with money are thinking maybe this midterm is not going to be kind of the traditional, opposite wave from the White House. Are you getting any sense of that on the ground?
I mean, that's my feeling. I mean, if you listen to the media, Hillary should have won the presidency in 2016. I think the Democrats have given us a great gift in their, we thought that they would recover from DEI and their woke policies, and now they've doubled down on socialism and candidates with Nazi tattoos. So.
Look, I love this. You're leading me to the questions I was going to ask, not in quite the same order, but this is great because I've been curious. In fact, it's one of for the people who stay and watch and listen to the rank punditry section we recorded earlier, we talk about this, about does this national message from the party, Mondami in New York and Graham Platner in Maine and this El Sayed guy in Michigan and the crazy lady in Colorado, and then you got the literally like a guy who was an Al Qaeda ally just won a primary in New Jersey. Is that filtering in to these other races by impacting the brand? So like no one says, oh, Stephanie Shaheen, she's pro Platner. I mean, no one's going to say that, but they are saying, man, this Democratic Party, it's kind of wild. Are you hearing that out on the stump?
I am hearing it, and I think it's important that we reject this as a
Mhm.
country because
Right,
our country is worse off when we don't have two parties that are willing to have a conversation. And
right.
right now we have a Democrat Party that's been hijacked by the far left. I'm sure you saw
Mhm.
that survey that said 66% of Democrats
Right,
prefer socialism over capitalism.
right.
They're discontent with our country.
Mhm.
And it was really weighing heavy on me. And I'll tell you, with all the people that came over for the World Cup,
Right.
it was great to hear them talk about how much they love our country.
Right.
Americans should be talking about how we have the greatest country in the
Yes.
world. And all this negativity from the Democrat side is repulsive. And it's got to stop.
Listen, I would call us a nation of Platners, and I want to explain because I don't mean Nazi and rapey.
Uh,
I mean this guy grew up in affluence. His
mhm.
family was very wealthy.
Yeah.
I think his mom was a professor. Like he's this his Mondami. His parents are very affluent. His mom's a documentary maker, and yet what do? They trash America because they don't have anything to compare it to. One of the great axioms of politics is nothing is good or bad except by comparison. And that's why you had these Europeans coming over and they're looking at how we live every day. And we're like, how come I'm not Elon Musk? And they're saying,
Right.
how come I'm not Mississippi? Because Mississippi has a higher household income than the UK. Think about that.
Right.
That's Mississippi. We're like twice as wealthy per household here in New Hampshire. So we're spoiled. We don't, if we had to live the way other Western communities live, I think we'd have a very different attitude. That's my theory.
It's true, but something you mentioned, those two candidates you mentioned, Mamdani and
Right.
Plattner,
Platner.
they grew up in privilege,
That's
but
right.
they never worked or didn't work a
That's
lot. I
true.
mean,
That's true.
I think Plattner served in the military and then worked
That's
for
true. He did.
some, but there was a Harvard study, 75-year study that said one of the keys of successful people
Mhm.
was that they, at a very young age, their parents gave them chores to do. It
Right.
got them working. It gave them, and that's my story. I mean, I started working when I was 8 years old, delivering the newspaper.
Mhm.
It gave me
Right.
self-confidence,
Mhm.
and I sometimes I wonder that these guys that grew up not having that work ethic, if that impacted their view on our country. Because I look at our country like
Right.
I've delivered the paper, I've washed dishes, I've waited
Sure.
tables, and I kept going, and I've been blessed to have a
Right.
start a business and live the
Mhm.
American dream. I think that was valuable to me, and I think they missed out by
Mhm.
not having to do that or ha
Well,
taking advantage of that.
my dad sent me at in my early 10, 11, 12 years old to go crop tobacco at my uncle Bobby's farm in
Right.
Robinson County, North Carolina, and that
Yeah.
convinced me that I never want to work ever again for a living, and I have not worked a day since. And when people say to me, like I'd work in a restaurant, people say, "Wow, you're a really hard worker." No, this is not work. I'll tell you what work is: 100 degrees, cropping tobacco, North Carolina. That's bleeping
Exactly.
work. But hey, I want to get to
Right.
something. There's an argument being made that you're part of the American dream winners and you're lifting the drawbridge. And that's why Democrats argue we need to tax people who are successful like you because you're controlling the wealth. You sometimes hear it that by being successful, whether it's Elon Musk or Bill Gates, whatever, they're stealing from the working class by. And their argument is the American dream's over. I can't afford a house. There's a new report out this week that a record number of people up to the age of 30 are still living with their parents, et cetera. What do you say to people who say what you did we can't do because the system is rigged against us and people in your generation rigged it?
I mean, one of the reasons I got in the race is I do believe that it has become more difficult to achieve the American dream,
Mm-hmm.
but it certainly is not dead. And taxing people that create jobs is not, or overtaxing people that create
Right.
jobs, is not the solution. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I started out with $7,000, started a company. It grew into a pretty good sized company. We
Right.
created over 1,000 jobs. You take a guy like Bezos, who is in a whole
Yeah.
different league. He basically took the concept of the United States Postal Service, which the government runs and
Right.
loses money at, and created over 1 million jobs delivering products to people's
Right.
houses, right? You look at Elon, if the government's
Mhm.
been in the space program for 60, 70, 80 years. He took it, he was dead broke during the recession
Right.
and now is a trillionaire because so the private
Mhm.
sector creates jobs, it creates
Mhm.
our country is the most innovative country in the world.
Right.
And we want to encourage that. One of the problems we are having, I believe,
Mhm.
is fiscal irresponsibility on the federal level.
Mhm.
We are electing politicians that aren't able to or unwilling to deal with the problems facing us, the
Right.
housing crisis, the energy
Right.
crisis. I mean, when I get to DC, I want to bring good paying jobs to New Hampshire. I've done it
Mhm.
before, and I'm hell
Right.
bent on getting that done. We have a
Well, let's
beautiful state. It
right.
should,
Well,
right? We do. Go
well,
ahead.
let's talk about two of those problems, and starting with housing. Now, obviously, you have a unusual connection to housing. You're literally building a housing project right now
Yeah.
in Portsmouth. What should the federal government be doing to address the fact that housing costs have become a significantly larger portion of people's bills? It's not the number I keep telling people; it's the percentage. Who cares if a
Right.
house is ten
It,
dollars
it,
or
it-
10 gazillion dollars? What
Good
you
point.
care about is, can you buy a house with about a quarter of your monthly income? And if you can, housing's great. If you can't, it doesn't matter what the price is.
That's the problem. So in the last 25 to 30 years, housing prices have outpaced wages in New Hampshire almost 3 to 1. So
Right.
that's unacceptable. Um, I was talking to Arthur Sullivan and Shane Brady the other day, and they do a lot I was impressed in how much housing they build. They
Mhm.
were telling me horror stories of regulation that they deal with,
Right.
just trying to do business. And this is
Mhm.
creating jobs and creating housing units in New
Mhm.
Hampshire and in the
Right.
Northeast. The government needs to get out of the way when it comes to housing and support developers. I'll give you an example. Florida Florida pays for the infrastructure when you're doing a new
Right.
development. So what that
Sure.
means is you buy a piece of land, you cut it up into house lots,
Right.
you bring in the infrastructure, the road, the sidewalks, the
Exactly.
sewer, all
The
that.
sewer.
Florida pays for that, then charges the connection. That alleviates that financial burden to the developer,
Right.
makes it easier to develop housing. So there
Right.
are things you can do. And you're right. I have experience. I've built about residential houses. I've built condos. I've built commercial. So I have
Mhm.
experience in this, and I'm committed to building thousands of houses in New Hampshire and
Mhm.
help working with the state government. And that's another thing we're lacking, where we have a Republican legislature and governor and
Right.
Democrat federal
Mhm.
representatives, they're not working as well
Right.
together as they should be. And when I get to DC, I will work with Governor Ayotte in our legislature to fix not only the housing issue, but
Right.
also the energy issue is a solvable problem.
Mhm. And so well, I want to get to a second problem, but and stick a pin in that delegation versus state house thing. I want to get
Sure.
back to that. The second thing that is a issue that politicians don't want to talk about is entitlements, Social Security. You've seen the numbers. Depending on whose math you believe, Medicare is going to run out of self-sustainable revenue by 2023. I mean, the next U.S. senator is going to have to deal with this problem. Social Security not far behind. What should Congress be doing about entitlements?
Well, first of all, most people don't realize how bad fiscal irresponsibility is in DC. Social
Right.
Security is a perfect example. It started in 1937. We've all been paying in. I'm 62 years old. We've
Right.
been paying in our whole lives.
Yep.
A private company would have to, by law, reserve those funds and invest
Mhm.
those funds for
Right.
the obligation they made, the government
Right.
made to the people of the United States. We didn't do that. We spent all the
Sure.
money. They,
Yep.
they say it's a crisis. That's
Hey,
wrong.
wait.
The
What
money is
happened to Al
gone.
Gore's lockbox? Didn't Al Gore have a lockbox? I thought, what happened to that? Did we lose the lockbox?
I think Hunter got a hold of it, but I don't know what happened to it. But the truth of the matter is they spent all the money.
Right.
And so it's not broken. What the US government did is no different than what Bernie Madoff did. Absolutely no different.
Mm.
People are now paying in
Right.
to cover the
Right.
obligations
Sure.
that the US government did not
Mhm.
protect us and
Right.
invest
Okay.
properly.
So that's how we got here. How do we go forward? What's your solution?
One of my favorite sayings is the best day to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second
Right.
best day is today. We have to start now. We have politicians in Washington that are unwilling to do things until there's a crisis.
Right.
I I'm going because I want to help the people in New Hampshire and help the people of
Mhm.
the country. I'm not
Right.
looking for a job. I don't care about all the fallout from talking
Right.
about Social Security. The solution is not a very sophisticated solution. We have to reserve that money. It has to be
Mhm.
invested in something like the stock market that's had a 10% plus return
Mhm.
over the last 100 years.
Right.
Um, I think we need to pay in a little bit more because the current benefits are really not enough to sustain a quality lifestyle.
Right.
People should be able to retire on. So I asked my grandfather, I'm like, why did you guys buy into this?
Right.
And he said they promised us it would be enough to live comfortably on.
Mhm.
Our government promised seniors, and we owe it to our seniors to ensure that they're able to live a quality life. This is the end of their
Mhm.
life. They shouldn't be struggling because the
Right.
US government didn't do their job. It's
So
terrible.
your potential Democratic opponent, Stephanie Shaheen, is touting her endorsement by a Social Security reform organization, and their plan is to remove the cap on the wages you pay Social Security taxes on. So if you earn, I forget the number off the top of my head, but it's around $150,000, you stop paying Social Security at that point. They want to just take it away and just have you keep paying that, 7 point whatever it is percent all the way up. Is that an idea you would support?
I would look at any ideas to fix Social Security. The way you fix a problem is you identify the problem, then you look at possible solutions. And that is one solution. We need to be able to work together in Congress to solve these problems. But
Mhm.
I've been in the private sector, in the business sector for almost 40 years. I've been
Right.
working on problems like this my entire life. Stephanie Shaheen does not have the experience to be working on problems like healthcare, Social Security, housing. Just look at her resume. It doesn't make her a bad person. It just
Right.
makes her unqualified. And I'll put my resume up against Stephanie's, Maura's, or anybody on the Republican
Right.
side. And the one consistent thing I've done in the private sector for almost 40 years is bring results. That's the
Right.
whole key to it. And when I get to DC, I will bring results for the people in New Hampshire.
So you mentioned earlier we have an all federal all Democrat federal delegation. We have a GOP controlled state house. Now you
Mhm.
have a Republican White House, which means if you're in the federal delegation, no matter which way you go, you're on the wrong team from a point of power.
Right.
You're off you're not on the bench, you're not in the room, you're outside. A lot of voters wonder why is that true? And so two questions for you. Why do you think it is that New Hampshire voters consistently vote for Republican governors and local legislators, and not since 2014 will vote for a Republican at the federal level? And two, why is Anthony DiLorenzo the guy who can pick that lock and turn that around?
We've been outmaneuvered by the Democrats on the federal level. They've
Mm-hmm.
outraised us. They've had more support. Their committee in state is
Mm-hmm.
much more
The state party,
capable. State
basically.
party,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
is
they
much
have a state
stronger.
party, which makes it superior to New Hampshire. We
Well,
have Republicans
I'm
who
told
don't
they
have
have,
a state party.
yeah, we have one or two guys there. They have
Mhm.
15,
Yep.
from what I've been told.
Right.
So they've outperformed us. Um, and that's had a significant impact. And they've gotten a lot of, even this race, Stephanie's had a lot of support from DC. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know why she thinks this is good, but she's got Gavin Newsom supporting her. And she's touting that as a good endorsement. I mean,
Right.
I don't think anybody in New Hampshire wants us to turn into
Right.
California. She's got Pritzker, but these people, she's got about 10 people, federal people like
Mhm.
that supporting her.
Right.
I don't think they resonate with New Hampshire, but it's just an
Right.
example of she's getting also this DC
Right.
support that we really aren't getting. I mean, Senator Sununu is getting some federal support.
Mhm.
So that has something to do with it as well. Why am I the candidate? My experience is very unique. Sector success.
Mhm.
Nobody handed me my business. I went
Right.
out and worked for it. And not only did I work for it, but I was able to to have a vision and convey that to my employees
Mhm.
that without their buy-in and their hard work as well, we would have never been able to do what we did. We have 40 businesses in 10 states, created over 1,000 jobs,
Right.
and that's bringing results. And that's what I want to do in Congress. In addition, like I said before, we have the resources this time from the federal money. We have my campaign has resources.
Right.
We have an excellent campaign staff. We have a great network in New Hampshire from not only the business contacts I have,
Mhm.
but I've been involved in charity, raising money for charities
Right.
for decades. So I have this built out network from
Right.
that as well.
Sure.
Um, so there's a lot of positives on in our campaign.
Well, then, two things that people bring up to New Hampshire Journal about your candidacy. One thing is you've just supported Democrats in the past, and there are people who are MAGA voters who are like, he must be one of those rhinos. He's a,
Mm.
we don't know that we can trust him. So, what's your message to MAGA Republicans who are concerned about your bipartisan efforts in the past?
Yeah, that was a long time ago, and I was basically they asked me. One was the mayor of Portsmouth, so I
Hmm.
supported him. And one you don't hear about is I think I gave Jean Shaheen $1,000 once because
Really?
yeah, she helped my
Okay.
wife get a passport, and I shouldn't have to call my senator to get. It
Right.
might have been 500. This is probably 15 years ago.
Look, Donald
Um,
Trump explained this very well when he was, look, when you're in business, you deal with who you got,
it,
and
it,
that's what,
it,
you write Hillary and Bill a check so they'll show up at your wedding. That was his
yeah.
argument.
It's true, but if you compare what I've given to
Hmm.
Republicans versus Democrats, it's
Right.
99%
Mhm.
Republican and
Okay.
1% Democrats. And that was also a much different time. They weren't crazy then.
Uh,
There wasn't DEI. I mean, I don't know
right.
how to put it, but there wasn't DEI, there wasn't socialism, there wasn't Nazi
Exactly.
tattoos. It
Right.
was a different time. And
And then the
and I
second
want to
thing
get back
is,
to that.
And then
Go
the
ahead.
second thing is people say, love your resume, but Holly Novleski has a solid resume, family business, et cetera. And that in New Hampshire, given the history of voting, right now our federal delegation does not have a single straight male in the delegation. Not that that's good or bad, it's just true. New Hampshire voters, there may be an identity politics aspect to voting, and
Hmm.
that having a woman standing across from Stephanie Shaheen might help. Do you have any response to that? Once again, it's not I'm anti Anthony. It's how do we win? Hey, voters seem to care about this identity stuff. Why shouldn't Republicans play?
I don't believe that that is really a factor. The difference between myself and Holly, yes, her father gave her a business, and that makes her a business owner, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a much different scenario than somebody that went out and actually worked for it, created their business, and
Mm-hmm.
worked across multiple verticals. I've been in construction. I've been in automobile sales. I've been in body shops, gyms,
Mm-hmm.
um, commercial real estate, hospitality, hotels. So I've got a vast experience. In addition, when you're working in 10 different states, you're working with all different types of state and federal bureaucracy, which people used to ask me, who's your biggest competitor? I would say the
Right.
federal government because it's a lot to navigate through. And then you've got all the other experience. Like I've done almost every single position in my company. I know that I did all the accounting till I got too big where I couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
So that gives me a very unique
Mhm.
set of experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up with this. The one issue that you hear from Republican primary voters when you're out at these events, when you're at the Seacoast candidate forum the other day, I will tell you what we hear is we just want to win. That is the number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
But our audience is more like saying politically active,
Yeah.
political junkies. They watch Sunday talk shows. I mean, obviously those are not normal human beings. You're talking to normal human beings. What's the one issue you're hearing most from people?
One of the most surprising issues I hear is the fact that people are tired of dysfunction in DC. They want the
Mhm.
parties to be able to work together and accomplish things. And I was surprised to hear that because
Right.
I've been experiencing, polarized
Right.
politics for the past
Yep.
really since Trump got into politics.
Yep.
So I'm happy to hear that because I think that's a right path. I think we need to work. We are elected by the American people to represent and serve them, and we have to do that. This when they close the government, that's wrong. We should be working together to improve the lives of American people.
Right. Listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Anthony DiLorenzo. How can people find out more about your campaign?
DiLorenzoforcongress.com. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.